All right, we're live. What's up, guys? What's up, guys? Man, welcome back to Deck Talk Podcast. Man, we've got one killer episode. We've been able and been blessed to be able to hang out a little bit with our guest here this past weekend. And but if you don't know, guys, I am Colin Burnett.
And I'm Norman Lee.
And I'm
Man,
Patrick Walters, I guess.
we
No,
was.
just kidding.
I got 20 million different things going on, but hey, Norman, when we was at the classic here, we seen a lot of boats that was filming and stuff. Man, it was something else, wasn't it?
It sure was calling it. You know what? That kind of leads us into the sponsor for tonight's episode, YOLO Tech. You never know when it's going to happen. That fish of a lifetime come out of nowhere and just destroy your bait. Never miss another memory making moment with YOLO Tech. No more changing batteries in your camera. Capture every memory, capture every moment with YOLO Tech. Always be recording. Click the link in the description of this episode. And don't forget, use that discount code DECKTALK10. Again, make sure, click the link in the description of this episode. Don't forget, use that discount code DECKTALK10. Man, I tell you what, that's right, Cole. We have been looking forward to this episode. Now we're really going to give a good introduction for this man right here that you can probably see on, I guess it's on the right hand side of your screens right now. All right, let's go with this. He is a five-time Bassmaster Classic qualifier. He is a Bassmaster College winner. He is a two-time Bassmaster Open winner, a Bassmaster Elite Series winner, and the current record holder for the largest margin of victory at an Elite Series event, winning by over 29 pounds. The pride of Summerville, South Carolina, the great one, Mr. Patrick Walters. What's
Thanks,
up,
What's
guys.
up,
brother?
brother? What's up,
I don't know. Thank y'all for having me.
man? I tell you, I've been looking forward to this, Patrick, since since about St. Clair. Just to let you know.
Yeah.
So it's been a minute.
Yeah. So we and guys, if you don't remember, last time Patrick was on at towards the end of the episode, I told Patrick that he was going to win one of the last two events, and he sure enough proved me right. I mean, I had nothing to do with it. I mean, it was all Patrick, but it sure makes me feel good that I could say, "Hey, Patrick, I mean, I called it," and so
Yeah.
It made me feel a lot better too. You're like, we get to have you back on, and I'm like, that does not upset me at all. It's like that's good news.
yeah, yeah. So
We've been kind of harassing Patrick about that for the last 2 weeks, reminding him that it was kind of all us.
Deck Talk called it. So, and but I will say this, guys, we had him. We was able to interview Patrick during media day, and we brought it up. And Patrick, because I already told Patrick that I have feelings about something else that's about to happen, and he told me that if it's to where if he just got to come on the podcast or whatever and for him to win, then we're gonna have to have him as a regular customer.
I'm
So.
actually gonna be the third host.
Right.
Yeah, we're
So
actually gonna have to find a fourth person for the guest. I'll just be
right,
the
right.
third host.
So, but man, Patrick, it was awesome to be able to see you and talk to you. And what really was your like? How was Tulsa to you as an angler?
Tulsa was pretty good. Grand Lake didn't treat me that good the first day. I had a decent practice. I thought I was actually going to catch them pretty good. I felt pretty good about the tournament. Kind of the conditions, setting up, what the kind of fish we're doing. Um, and I like Tulsa. The town's really nice. It's big. There's not a whole bunch of people there. You know, the
Mm-mm,
infrastructure is really there. I mean, like when you walk around, there's hardly no traffic. It's like, where is
mm-mm.
everybody at? Um, the only thing I didn't like necessarily was the hour and a half drive every day to the
That's
lake.
what I
It's
was about to say.
92 miles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the only downside. and I never saw any deer or turkeys that entire trip.
Oh,
All week. Like the only time I seen deer was at that Honey Creek State Park
Yeah.
or whatnot right there at Grand Lake, and they were like tame. They'd eat crackers out of your hand, out of the
oh,
truck. Um, that was the only downside was that hour and a half every day where you had to make it
Yeah.
going to the boat ramp in the morning and coming back to weigh in. Other than that, the boatyard was nice. The classic, I mean, it's a show. It is the Super Bowl, and there's so many moving parts to it. It's
there
kind of
is.
unbelievable.
Yeah, when I mean, as a spectator, you really don't get to see all the moving parts. We get to see some or little more than what the spectators do with being part of the media. But I mean, Bass to me, I mean, the one they cater to the audience and stuff. But I mean, to me, it seems like they really do take care of the anglers and stuff, trying to make sure that uh, that you do have some of that spotlight during the classic as well, uh, and just to see like how like the guys that have been there. Um, I know when you're out on the water and stuff and I mean your enemies out on the water, but how the guys kind of mingle together once the boat's out of the water. I mean, y'all are buddies, and for the most part.
Wonderful. That's the thing about the classic. It's like you made it there. I mean, you're there to win, but at the same time, you're there to have a good time. I mean, you're there for your sponsors, you're there for everybody else, and everybody is pretty close. I mean, like we go out on Sunday night after we get done with practice, we go back out for Wednesday night on the the night of champions. It's always a good time. The camaraderie is very good amongst the anglers because it's a long week. I mean, it's
Yeah.
you think it's 3 days of the tournament. It's like, oh, that's what it
Hmm.
is. The 3 days of the tournament's honestly the shortest period of time in the classic almost. Everything else is building up to. I mean, we're there for a week ahead of time.
Right.
3 days of practice, 2 off days, the media day or official practice, and then media day, and then the tournament.
Yeah.
There's a lot that kind of takes place before you even get to really fish.
Yeah.
Right. Now, did I like was the first day of like the actual tournament? We really didn't get to like I was expecting a lot more bags coming in 20 around 20 22 pounds is what I was expecting. And there was really what I think there was what two or three of them that actually broke
Three
20.
20s, I think. Yeah.
Right. And, but how much did the wind play effect on like day two? Because day two, it really seemed like it ramped back up that it really, you seen more of that, the bigger bags on day
That's when
two.
they really started biting. I feel like was on day two. That first day it was slick calm, and you had to make them bite. You had to really kind of slow down in your area, and pick them apart. And I didn't do that. I fished way too fast through there because I was just trying to cover water. Because in practice, honestly, it was pretty easy to catch 15 to 17 pounds anywhere you went.
Right.
Like you just threw jerk bait or crankbait down a windy bank, and you caught fish. I mean, that's
Right.
how I was thinking I could just cover water, and you were gonna catch them. And that first day, it just kind of it it slowed up big time. That no wind,
Right.
that wind makes a is wind is a really big factor on Grand Lake for making those fish bite.
Yeah. What I
Now, does wind play? Um, how does is there times that you don't want wind, or is there? Do you pretty much?
If I was bed fishing, I probably wouldn't want wind. Or if I was even maybe like a really good dock bite and it was kind of hard. But even if I was saying like throwing a swim bait around docks or something, I'd still want wind.
Right.
Wind's typically your friend, especially pre-spawn. During the spawn, you really don't need wind. That way you can help see them and find the fish. But if it's pre-spawn and they're heading that direction, I'd say I'd want wind every single day.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, going into practice, did it kind of set up like you thought it would before you started practicing with your practice days, as far as kind of your game plan going into practice? Did you kind of did it kind of go down during practice the way you kind of felt it was going to prior? Like if when you were on your way to the event.
It did a little bit. There were some areas that I actually went and pre-practiced it in October after the MPFL event on Lake Eufaula, and so all I did was ride around the lake and I just kind of looked. I didn't even fish when I was there. I was there for a day and a half, um, and the areas of the lake changed a little bit, kind of, and I think that's all due to just water clarity. So I just the first couple days of practice, I just kind of rode and looked where the bait was at.
Right.
In some areas, they were further back in the creeks than I thought, and I didn't fish for those fish in the tournament, which because we had a cold front, and then I went and checked them again Wednesday. See, that's kind of what bugs me is how far practice is ahead of time. I found them on Friday or Saturday, Friday it was a whole week before the tournament started. They were schooling in the back of pockets on bait. And I was like, man, this is going to be the deal. And I didn't even go back and check those fish in the tournament at all. Um,
Oh man.
Yeah.
I fished main lake stuff mostly because that's where I thought I was going to catch a bigger bag.
Yeah.
Main lake flat points, and then I'd fish some creeks and I'd fish like deeper channel swings. And so it kind of set up. I thought I was going to catch them jerking. That's what I caught most of my fishing on, jerking and a flat side crankbait,
Yeah.
actually the OG Slim. And I
Right.
did catch a couple on a jig.
Now,
So
most of the guys actually caught them, I think, shallower. Not so much with the deeper water electronics in this event. Um,
definitely.
yeah. Now, do you think there's still fish out there that you could have live scoped
There was
if you needed
times
to?
there's so much trash there, and what I mean by trash is there's so much carp and so much drum. I mean, there's like three, four
Yeah.
different types of carp there. There's
Yeah.
catfish, um, a bunch of white bass, ton of white bass in that lake. So I did think I was going to be able to actually scope them a little bit more there.
Yeah.
Um, because I didn't even fish in pre-practice there. So when I got there, was the first time I really like had tried to fish it, and you could not scope them as good as I expected.
Right.
So that's
Right.
kind of what
Yeah.
surprised me, and that you actually had to blind cast and fish shallow, which I
Yeah.
mean that's kind of what I love to do. So it wasn't
Yeah.
hard for me to adapt. It was just you got to slow down
Going
sometimes.
back to our
Yeah.
roots.
Yeah.
Going
Because
back to the roots.
in which you said it had like a bunch of trash fish and stuff, and we were talking to Greg Hackney, and that was one thing that he said that was the buffalo there was just fun. I mean, he said they were just in like schools of 100 of them, and
Hundreds.
he
I
said
mean,
it was he said it was hard to. He said looking at them on the depth finders and stuff like that. He's like, you think that they're bass, but then they're not doing anything. But then he said, if I can get away from them buffalo, he says I'll have a chance.
There
And
were so many of them; it was just too difficult to pick one or two bass out of
it's and the
the
bass will
immense
mingle
amount.
with
Yeah.
them because I mean I was catching on shallow flat points out on the main, and you could pan over there and there'd be fish everywhere, and you could see your bait coming through there and nothing's reacting. So you just have to make a long cast and then you start working it and then you just catch a bass.
yeah,
So it was like you kind of if you sat there and tried to pick off individual fish,
Yeah.
you'd just kill so much time.
Yeah.
now do you still get from the first time that you crossed that Bassmaster stage? And then the first time or the time that you crossed it this here last weekend, do you still get the kind of I'm at the Bassmaster Classic jitters, or is it just kind of going through the motions and you know that you're there, but it's still exciting, but
You know
you're
that
not
you're
as
there.
nervous?
It's beyond exciting, and I don't get as nervous as I used to. Um, it still just kind of blows you away how big that stage is. I felt really good about this one. I mean, I thought I had a really good chance, and then it just when it's your time, it's your time. That's what's weird
Yeah,
about the classic is you can be calm and cool, as collected as you want to, but then it's like little things make a big difference there.
Yeah.
yeah,
You kind of just got to be laid back, and if it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
right now. With I mean, I think I mean they're. Uh, I mean, I couldn't imagine just being on that stage, anyways. But I think I really appreciated like when y'all got on stage and how I mean, quite a few of y'all said, "Hey, just because you're sitting out there right now doesn't mean that you cannot be out on this stage." And I thought that the anglers and stuff kind of, I mean, that they showed more appreciation this year, especially than the other kind of classics towards the viewers or the audience. and I thought that was pretty cool. And but my thing though is I don't. I mean, this year's rookie class,
They're good.
they are studs.
They're good.
And we talked to, oh goodness, who was it? Oh, Robert Gee.
Yep.
And he told me, I was like, man, I asked him, like, how was his experience and stuff, just so far, the two events in the elites. And he says, I don't think the older guys care too much for our rookie class. I said, I told him, I said, Robert, I said, it's not that they don't like you. I said, but when you get that boat in that water, you're enemies. I mean, that's what it is. I said, but once that boat's out of the water, I mean, and that's just from the past 4 years that I've gone to the classics and gone to different events and stuff like that. That's what I've noticed. That I mean, that's business. That's y'all's office. You
100%.
and if you don't take it that way, you don't need to be there. And that's what I was kind of telling him. But I wanted to say, like, that rookie class. I mean, the past 2 year rookie classes have been just studs.
They're
Yep.
studs.
And so, do you think that if they were forced to where, like, they could not use the forward facing sonar as much as what they really, because they tend to rely on it more, and not that there's anything wrong with it, but they tend to rely on it. But do you think that if they had a tournament to where they were having to beat the banks and throw that blind cast like what you was talking about, do you think that they'd have that success?
I think about half of them. I mean, you still got to have that fishing instincts. And the thing is, with that generation, they're all young. I mean, the second oldest one's 24,
Right.
and the oldest one's Milliken. And I mean, I don't know how old Milliken. He's in his 30s,
I think
but
like
no, it's
34.
34. It's
Mm-hmm.
a very young age group of rookies, and so they grew up in the age of technology. That's why they're so good with it. I mean, they're experts.
Yeah.
That's what they know. That's how they know how to catch bass. And nothing against it, because that's right now, that's
That's
completely how
working.
you that's how you compete. That's how you compete.
Yeah.
That's how you win tournaments. That's how you do good. Um, and if they took that away, it would. They're still great anglers. They still know how to catch fish. It'd probably be about half of them, but that's half of any rookie class we've ever had.
Yeah.
My rookie class was a great rookie class we came in with. I mean, it
Yeah.
was me, Drew Cook, Lee Livesey. I mean, there's a bunch of them in there where you're like, man, those are hammers. And it's
Oh,
like,
man, that.
there was probably 9 of us then, and it's like half of us are still here.
And
So
it,
it's like, no matter
yeah.
what, you're always going to have the rookie classes like that.
And all
Yeah.
your class that you came in with as a rookie, you went through the college ranks with most of them guys too, like Drew Cook and
Yep.
quite a
Drew
few
Cook,
others.
Mike
Yeah,
Huff, Skylar Hamilton
yeah,
was in there, Garrett Paquette.
hmm
Paquette's an absolute hammer.
yeah.
Um, trying to think. It was a bunch of us, and we were young then too. We've all
Yeah.
got a little age on us now.
Now,
Jake Whitaker, he was in there.
Yeah,
He's a hammer.
oh man, I forgot. I mean, without you naming them, I knew uh, that you and Drew Cook came in at the same time, and I thought that Lee was right there with you. I didn't know that he was with in that
Yep.
same class, but I
He was in our
mean
same class.
that those. I mean
Those are good
that
ones.
man,
I'm
and
saying we had a tough rookie class too.
yeah, yeah, that's true. Um, so is there anything that you would have done differently in the classic that you think that may have been able to set you up for Sunday?
Um, I needed to slow down a good bit. I should have just probably fished a couple of areas. I should have went to a couple of creeks I had that I know I could catch fish in, and just went there day one and just try to catch a few fish. Just try to slow down instead of like running high percentage areas like 1 2 foot 2 fish spots and trying to do that, because I was like,
Right,
if I catch, only be 3 4 pounds, and so I tried to run all that, and then just from when you get sped up, you really have a hard time slowing down. Um,
right.
and to tell you, me and Hamner share everything we got. That's my travel partner.
Well,
Um,
that's what I was gonna. I was kind of
and
gonna
so
save
it's
that
we
for a
talked
second.
about where we were gonna fish and everything, and he asked me first. He's like, "Where do you want to start?" And I said, "I want to start in these two pockets," because I was like, "These two pockets are good." And he said, "Okay, well, I'm gonna start in the bottom creek down here." and we shared the creek. I mean, I caught my biggest fish in practice in that creek, and I had a little spot in there, and I was like, okay. I said after that we'll just switch off, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and he ends up cracking them day one, and I'm like, I got 10 pounds.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
J-
I
Justin
basically
won the
gave him
coin
everything
flip.
I had and just stood back. I mean, because at
Yeah.
that point it's like I'm gonna have to go fish something completely
Yeah.
different. Because we had a bunch of brush in Horse Creek together, and after that I never went back to it for
Right.
another day. So it was
Well.
kind of like I didn't have a chance unless I caught 25 pounds and to jump back. But I was like,
Right.
that just shows you how close you can be. It
Yeah.
a
Right.
simple coin flip.
Well, I liked what you said to Mercer after you weighed in, and you said, "Well, Mercer, I just wanted to make sure that these guys had a little room to let them know that I was coming right up behind them on day two, or something like that." It was something to where I like coming from, but
I gotta scare them.
yeah, yeah. So, but we talked to you. I don't know, 5 or 6 times during the classic. We ran into you, and you and you impressed me, Patrick, when we were talking. It was after day one. It might have been on day two or something like that when we seen you, and you said, "If I cannot win this classic, I would love that nobody else to win but Habner." And when we walked away from you, I told Norman, I said that was legit. That was,
Yeah.
I knew that one was straight from the heart. That if you couldn't win it, you would be just as excited. And we saw you after the classic, and I mean, you had the biggest smile when we just passed, and just in crossing we passed, and you was all excited. Like, I gotta go, but we'll see you
I
Thursday.
gotta go get it. Gotta go find him.
Yep.
That's 100%. It's like I mean everybody wants to win, but when you know you don't have a legitimate shot, it's your buddy. I mean it's your
Yeah.
best friend. It's your second runner up. You know, and he had the chance, and that's
Oh
what
yeah.
it was. And to know how far he's coming bass fishing, that's what means everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what's that house going to be like at the next event with you and Justin there? Yeah, because I'm sure you being roommates and you get when you're roommates on the road, you pretty much see each other probably more than you see your wife, your family. And I'm sure there's some ribbon going back and forth on your part about winning a couple elite series events, and now Justin's going to be able to bring that Bassmaster Classic trophy into the
He's
room and
probably
say,
gonna
"All
sleep
right,
with it that
He's
first.
he's
all right,
definitely probably gonna sleep with it.
here
It's
you
funny
go, here you
because
go, Patrick. This is what you got to look forward to
I
now."
always make him book the Airbnbs always because he's booked some shoddy ones now. Let me tell you, if y'all ever get him on here, you give him a hard time about his sketchy Airbnbs.
You
So
should have seen our
I
hotel there at the Classic. Prime
Oh,
ribbon for that.
I believe it.
It was nothing less
Yes,
than a Roach Motel.
I believe it. And
I,
so the roles have already changed. I had to book the one for Harris Chain
Yeah.
and St. John's already. I was like, man, I in charge of that this time.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
gonna let him slide. I can't let him. He can only be at the top for so long. I gotta do something to get back level with him. Make him start booking them again.
yeah.
Yeah, right.
So, but because that's one thing that we talked to you about. You're like, with having the blue trophies and stuff, that you kind of had that over. You kind of held that over him a little bit, and then you was like, "But if he wins the classic, I can't say nothing."
Can't say nothing. You're
Yeah,
right. That's why I told him. I said for your first W, the classic's definitely the one to get. If
yeah,
you're to get one, that's the one.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because till his dying days, I mean, he's always, from now on, is going to be considered or be announced as Bassmaster Classic winner, and
The
that's,
champion. He's gonna
yeah,
have a banner at every classic from now on. So I told
yeah.
him. I said, you got your name on a banner now. Yeah.
So, but and we were excited. I mean, because to me, he's one of the most humblest person that is on the tour. The next closest person I'd say would be Gussie. Yeah, and just because, like, just how they present themselves, and
Absolutely.
is just phenomenal, and just to see him living in that moment, and you can tell when he was nervous walking up to the stage on day 3, but you can tell that he already kind of knew that he had it in. It wasn't like it was uh, Jason Christie and Kyle Welcher type deal.
You're right. That
It
was
was,
close.
and it was he knew that he more than likely had it, but just to kind of once they announced it, all that just he just let it go,
Because it's so
and
much of like what ifs
yeah,
beforehand. You're like,
Yeah,
what if he has more than you think? What if you don't have as much as you think?
yeah,
It's just, it's life changing.
yeah.
And
yeah,
so
We
it's
were
like,
we
you don't know what it's going to be until he
yeah.
says it.
yeah.
We were sitting in the media section, and when he finally, was declared the winner, the confetti coming down, and and then at the end
That was
when
some confetti.
he was,
That was
he,
that
he
was a
he
lot.
was being interviewed by Mercer, and he become very emotional talking about his family and his route and his path to get there. While we're sitting in the media section, I'm sitting there, trying to hide the tears coming out of my eyes, just watching Hamner, trying to hide it from all the other media people around because I don't want to see anybody see me crying. But actually, he brought out the tears out of me, just watching the emotion that was coming out of
I'll
coming
send you
out
the
of
pictures,
him.
Patrick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, I believe it. I was
But
tearing up.
but
Trust me,
just
it'll bring a grown man. I
just
mean,
the
Yeah,
when you know
relief,
what he's going through just to get
just the
there, it's,
yeah,
relief of
yes,
the emotions that he was expressing. It just goes to show how much this classic means to whoever wins this really the Super Bowl of bass fishing.
absolutely.
It just shows how much it means to everybody that's actually competing
yeah.
to win it.
It
Now,
really
do you
does.
do you think that at the classic that 56 anglers is a good number, or do you think that it should be more or less?
I go less. I don't want any more people there, you know. I like
Yeah,
the 50 because it's hard to get there. And so when you get there, you've earned it. You know, you're not there against 1,000 people. I mean, you're there against 56 other guys. And so your chance of winning is
1 in 56. Yeah.
Yeah,
1 in 56. It's good. It's really
yeah,
good. And that's kind of upsetting. It's like, I hadn't had a good crack at it yet. And this is my fifth classic appearance, and you don't get many, I feel
Mm-mm.
like. I mean, so
yeah.
it's counting down.
Well,
Yeah.
it took KVD 10 before he got his first. It was, I
Norman,
think,
I did not know
KVD's
that.
10th.
Thank you for
Yep,
telling me that. You
Kevin's
just
10th.
brightened my day.
It was Kevin Van Dam's 10th before he won his first, and then he ended up winning four after that.
Are you serious? I did not
Hmm
know that.
That
Yeah.
was his 10th.
That gives me chills, Norman. You
Yeah.
get me fired up.
Now,
I'm about to go outside and start working on
So
tackle
you
right
say
now.
there's still a chance.
Oh
now,
gosh, you got me fired up.
Yep.
now, I do want to
Yeah.
talk a little bit about your other travel partner, and and you said on the stage that you was surprised that y'all haven't started throwing punches yet. Um, so how is it to have your dad be able to travel with you, and to share that experience as well with you?
It's amazing. I mean, I wouldn't trade anything in the world for having him there. I mean, it's so much help. And what I mean by that is just that's how best friends we are. We're almost it's almost like a brotherly relationship where we'll be in the truck just arguing, but we're arguing for the same thing. It's like I
Right.
was like we're on the same page, Dad. What are you talking about? Um, and so it's like yeah, we've been on the 5 weeks on the road is a lot. I
Yeah.
mean, and sitting side by side, you're like, and we done really good. So
Yep.
no, I you couldn't trade that for anything, and to be able to share that experience, it means a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah. We need to actually have him come on the podcast and let him and Norman kind of reminisce a little bit. Not too much, but
Not
let him.
too. You're right. Just about 15 minutes worth. We need to get him on
Right.
here and get him fired up.
I
I'll
tell
be
Yeah.
you
about it.
what, Todd showed me the right way how to fish Santee Cooper. I will tell you that much. He's a pretty darn good hammer there.
It kills me when he fishes with me too because I'm out there like turning and burning. Got to catch him on a spinnerbait. He's like, slow down, and he just. I'm like, come on now, slow down. And I look back there and it's like a 6 pounder, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'll slow down a little bit. And then I slow down, I make about 3 or 4 casts, and then I'm like, all right, I
Yeah.
gotta get going again.
Gotta
But
get it.
mm-mm. They bite that
So,
moving stuff sometimes.
uh, so is there a tournament that you're looking forward to be able to hit this year? Are you excited about being able? Are you looking forward to going back up north with? I mean, you really last year. I mean, you had a heck of a season last year, anyways. I mean, but then coming out with the W on St. Clair was just phenomenal. But is there a lake that you're looking forward to being able to go out?
Honestly, I like all of them. We're going to Harris Chain next, which is a good one. Harris is iffy. That's the one I'm kind of like, because they be deep and shallow. That's the one thing I don't like about there is that they a lot of times they can be strictly deep, or sometimes they'll be shallow. So it's 50-50 there. We're going to St. John's. I really like St. John's River. That's a great fishery there. We're going to Lake Murray, which is like my second home lake, and I'm really excited about that. We're going there in May. Then Wheeler Lake, we have not taken a leap to Wheeler Lake since 2016. I want to say that's
Yeah.
when Takahiro won on that swim bait and that
Yeah.
spook, and I do
Mm.
like Wheeler Lake a lot.
Yeah.
That's when Dave Lefebvre was catching them on that jig too. I'm excited about there. Middle of June though, that's going to be kind of late, and then we're going to Smith Lake. Um, that one's going to be interesting because that's going to kind of be on Fourth of July weekend, and I don't know if y'all know anything about Smith Lake.
A little
Uh,
bit.
Never been
it's
on it.
narrow and it's got a lot of ski boats on it, like a
Yeah.
lot. So
Yeah, you
that's
think
actually not going to be a
Chickamauga
bad
has a
trip.
lot, Norman?
I was gonna say like Chickamauga.
Mm-mm.
No, it's double,
You,
triple,
yeah,
triple.
Yeah.
I've been to Chick 100 times, and it's like there's a lot at Chickamauga, but Smith
Nah.
Lake is nothing but it's like Lake of the Ozarks of docks. They say it's like a miniature Lake of the Ozarks, and it's just narrow. It's like you
Yeah.
have to run up and down a little skinny
And
river.
what month are you at Smith Lake?
It's June 27th to
Oh,
the 30th.
well, you're
It's
gonna be
Fourth of
right in the
July
heart of ski.
weekend.
You're gonna be right in the heart of ski boaters. Fourth of July. Oh man.
yeah.
Yeah, that's the
Oh
one
wow.
thing. So, and then Champlain and St.
You guys are
Lawrence.
gonna
I
be
mean,
doing this.
yeah, we're gonna be wave
Take
jumping them.
take your Dramamine before you start each time.
You're right. I'm about to put a seakeeper in that bass boat.
Seatbelt.
Yeah. So, if you was to have your what is your go to bait if Patrick needs to catch one more fish to be able to catch a limit? What is Patrick going to?
I'm gonna go with two baits,
Let me
one or
get a
the
notepad
other.
here. Hang on a second.
It's
Write
gonna
this
be a
down.
Zoom
He's
fluke
writing this
stick
down.
or a jerk bait.
Yeah.
A straight up wacky worm or a jerk bait.
Yeah.
Them two things, those are the most fish catchingest baits in the world. I mean,
Yeah.
a a, a Senko is what everybody calls it. Everybody knows a Senko. I throw the Zoom fluke stick. I just bite the tail off. Same exact bait. It's the same bait. Um, and I don't care if you Texas rig it. I don't care if you put it on Carolina rig. I don't care if you Texas rig it weightless. I don't care if you throw it as a wacky worm. It's gonna catch a bass, like without a doubt. And then a jerk bait. I don't care if you throw that thing in 100 foot of water. I don't care if you throw it in 1 foot. Throw it in a treetop. Throw it by a dock. I mean, it's gonna get bent.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what my dad needs to be throwing then. He
Yeah.
throws a lot in the trees.
Yeah. You know, the one thing I always
uh,
considered a Senko, I call them Senko style baits because it seems like every company out there makes their version of the Senko's.
100%. Yep.
Senko's the original by Yamamoto, but yeah, that's the one thing I always thought with the Senko style baits is no matter where you are, where you fish in the United States, you always could throw a Senko and be productive with it, no matter
Without a
where
doubt.
you are, what
I
time of
don't
year you're
care if
throwing
you're
it.
on linear and
Yep.
30 foot of visibility
Hmm.
sometimes. I don't care if you're smallmouth fishing. I don't care if you're in Canada. I don't care if you're in Mexico. They bite.
Yep. Yep.
I
Yeah.
No
mean,
matter.
I don't know what it resembles, but go.
Yeah. Now I I,
Yeah.
I
But it doesn't matter what it resembles.
It
It's
doesn't.
on.
Now I seen a
So
quote. I seen a quote you made, and it's kind of understandable after the last tournament last season. But you mentioned a quote. Now I don't know when you said it, but you consider yourself a shallow water fisherman. But in this quote, you said, "I'm starting to slowly love northern lakes."
uh,
Listen, I love that brown sugar. I mean, who doesn't? You get a little taste of it, and you're like, "Oh,
Uh,
because I love fishing down south. I love southern reservoirs. I love big largemouth, and that's what took me so long to figure out the smallmouth train kind of deal was, I go up there and you get on the obvious point. the most obvious stuff out there, and you'd start catching them, and you'd catch 32 pounders. And in my mind, I'm like, I'm on them. Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna sit here and burn them. I got them figured out. And I'd sit there and catch them, and I'd end up with 13 and a half pounds because they were all 2 pounds to two and a half, every single one of them. And so that's what the problem was, is I wasn't fishing for the big fish. And so once you
Yeah.
kind of figure out where those big fish are at and the little bit of differences, and there's not really that much, you just have to fish for them. Then you start targeting them, and it's like, okay, they
Yeah.
turn to three and a halfs, then they turn to
Yeah.
fours, and then they turn to fives, and that's when you're like, mm.
Yeah.
Like
Now,
in
Yeah.
the last year, I've caught more 5 pound smallmouth than I had. I think my first 3 years to St. Lawrence, I caught maybe that third year I caught one. I don't know. First 2 years I caught maybe one 5 pounder in
yeah.
2 trips of going up there,
Yeah.
and in the last two times it was, or just the last one time. I mean, I think I caught 20.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a difference.
Now,
That's what it blew my mind.
one of the things, and I hate this, but one of the things I forgot to put in the intro when we started this episode is that you're also a two-time Century Belt winner and
Three
Three.
time
three
now.
time. Oh man,
I got one right here. I
yeah.
hadn't even unpacked it yet.
All
That's what
right.
I was fixing to say something to you about it.
But I was gonna
That's the
say
smallmouth one.
that's what I was gonna
Heck
say.
yeah.
One of those was on the St. Lawrence
Yeah.
last season.
Yep.
I can't even imagine, dude, a Century Belt over 100 pounds in 4 days on smallmouth. That's a
I couldn't imagine
25
either. I
pound
didn't think it was
average,
possible.
dude.
Mm-mm.
Smallmouth. It's just unbelievable. But when you're like after the third day, and when you're in the lead going into the final day, that's one type of pressure, knowing that you were in the lead going into the championship Sunday. That's a certain type of pressure. But what does it take knowing that you're one good day away from winning a century belt? Because there's not a lot of anglers that have a century belt under their belt, and there's very very few anglers that has more than one, and you have three of them.
Honestly, it kind of messes with your mind because you're like you want to do anything to get that century belt, and I think I needed 20 pounds, 19 pounds to get that century belt, and I wish I wouldn't have known that because I fished completely different on day four. I had like four or five good spots, and I went to like a 20 pound hole. Like
Right.
I told you, like you got 12 pound holes, you got 14 pound
Yeah.
holes.
Yeah.
I was saving the 25 pound hole for later. I could have just went there from the get go and probably knocked it out, but I was like, I got a 20 pound hole where they're easier to catch.
Yeah.
And of course, smallmouth, that's the hardest thing about it, is they change every single day. Some days they're
Yeah.
just gone. They don't want to bite. A
Yeah.
smallmouth will not bite if it does not want to bite. I've seen him sit on the bottom and not move. He's just sitting there. You'll put your bait in front of him, and he'll just look at it and go,
Yeah.
nah. He
Uh,
won't bite. And so I went and wasted so much time trying to catch 20 pounds to get a cool century belt, and I should have just went and like put a nail in a coffin and just
yeah.
cracked them.
Yeah.
And so it took me till like 1 o'clock, and I was like, too much stress. That's why it's like
Yeah.
you just need to go out and just fish.
Yeah. So I guess it's a different kind of stress than
It
going
is.
in trying to get that century belt than if you know you're in the lead just trying to win it.
And see, that's the thing about smallmouth is you don't really stress about if you're going to catch them or who's behind you, if you're going to win or not. You're really kind of stressing of what are they going to be doing today? Are they going to
Yeah.
be on the same
Yeah.
stuff, or how much have they moved? Because one day you got to catch them on a drop shot, one day you got to catch them on a hair jig, one day you got to catch them on a little swim bait,
Right.
um, and how far did they go? And so that's the biggest difference is where are they going, what are they doing, and it's just figuring that out each day. And
Yeah.
once you can figure that
Right.
out, it's good because it took me till like I said 1 o'clock, and then I made a big run back closer towards the wetland, and I caught my two biggest fish in the last 30 minutes basically. Um,
Yeah.
and that's when it was kind of like it started clicking. And if I don't make that run and catch those two fish, I don't win the tournament
Oh
at
Yeah.
wow.
all.
Now, I've noticed with like on Nick and Jack and stuff, like when we're fishing for smallmouths, like smallmouths and spots, they're running together. And I've noticed like with the smallmouths and stuff that they tend to stay in the general area, but they will go with Nick and Jack being part of the Tennessee River and stuff, and that they will tend to move, depends on the current. They will move
Yep.
up close or they're down, but they're saying in that general area. Is that the same for up in St. Lawrence and all that as well?
Sometimes, like say Saginaw, them fish will swim 50 miles, 50. Like
Wow.
they legit leave the bay, and I mean, uh, sometimes they it all depends on the type of water they're in, whether it's a river, whether it's a lake. You know, if it's a bay, typical bay fish will leave. Like Saginaw Bay, like it's a humongous bay. I mean, it's
Right.
larger than any lake we have hardly down here, but it's a bay, and so they come in that bay and they spawn and they leave. They're pelagic. They chase bait. Um, and they go for that bottom where they want to find their spawning areas, where's the best habitat, and then they go back out. So, like river systems, like TVA smallmouth, they are completely different animals
Yeah.
than those northern ones. Like St. Clair, those fish swim a bunch because you see how long they are, and they got really big mouths. Um, and so do nothing but swim around, and then they'll
Yeah.
go spawn up shallow, and then they just do a giant circle around that lake. I feel like that's all they do. They're NASCAR. They do circles,
Yeah.
and then you go to Ontario, and it's like those fish kind of go from shallow right back out to the same kind of stuff. Like those fish don't move much. So
Right.
like once you find a couple good areas, they're typically good. And so it's like every kind of body of water up there is different
Wow.
because they're
Right.
goby eaters at St.
Yeah.
Lawrence. They're not bait eaters like St. Clair.
Yeah.
Now, kind of going a little bit off that, and kind of going back on the forward facing sonar. I haven't had forward facing sonar for too terribly long, maybe 7, 8 months, and and this is kind of a question to you to kind of what I've noticed on the forward facing sonar. Uh, I was fishing. I was on Chickamauga, and so I was fishing. It has a rock bluff coming downstream. So I was fishing the point because it had another little creek channel coming out. So I was fishing this point, and I went to go change the baits, and I hit the foot pedal, and it went out to the channel in 60 foot of water. And I seen just big old bass just on the forward facing sonar, about 6 to 7 feet deep, just kind of just chilling, just cruising around. And but I noticed like it was making just a big old circle. It's just, and it was all it was doing is just kind of had its time, like just like what you're saying, just making a circle. I asked a buddy of ours, and he's probably one of the best natural fishermen that I've ever met. And he said he told me that they do that circle, especially like the females and stuff will circle around the bigger ones. And he said, but the thing is timing it to where when they're out in that 60 foot of water or deeper water, they're tending to typically not chew until they kind of get closer to where they're pushing that bait up close. Um, is that would that be like like something that, I mean, because I noticed that it circled. I never really seen that it was doing too much, like pushing the bait up. But is
Yeah,
that
when they
a
get out there in no man's land, that's their safety spot.
right?
They don't really plan on biting. They're just got their air letters blown up. They're just kind of they're in no man's land. They're not there to feed. They're not there to do anything. They've never been harmed out there ever. So they've that's where they know to be safe. And you see smallmouth do that a lot of times too. And a lot of times when you pull up, say Chickamauga is a good example. I've seen it there. You pull up to a community hole, a good looking point, and they're usually there at all times. Bass, you're
Yeah,
like, oh, they're back in the day we throw in there and wouldn't catch nothing. What happens is you throw in there, they might not be biting then. They could be like you said, swimming off the point on deep water. But as soon as they make that circle back and they get back to the point, that's when they want to feed. That's
yeah,
the dinner table. That's truly what that spot is. That's where they know to eat, and they're not really eating out around from that area. So when that fish is out there doing that circle, it's just gonna, I mean, it could be digesting its food. We don't know what it's doing.
right.
It could just be kind of, and it might have a stomach ache. I mean, we don't know what. But when they make that circle back and they get back into that kill zone, they get back to that shallow point, that shell bar, that bluff, anything. That's where they want to feed uphill and they want to push their bait against something. Um, that's why big swim bait fish eat the bait right at the boat because they don't know it's a boat. They just know it's a wall and he can pin that bait against it. That's usually where they bite
Makes yeah,
last minute. So that's the same thing with bluffs. They want to they want to have a backdrop, so that bait really can't get away.
right. So it makes a lot of sense, and I knew that if I asked you that you can kind of explain it a little bit better than, and that's what I was kind of thinking, especially talking to our buddy Caleb. But I was like, I gotta ask Patrick. So John Pate says, when was it you realized you were going to be a fisherman, and how old were you?
I fished my first bass tournament in sixth grade with a buddy of mine, and from that day on, I was like, I want to bass fish. I didn't know that's what I want to do for a living. I'd probably say like 10th grade is where I was like, this is what I want to do for a living. That's when I actually quit baseball because it was in the springtime. I was playing, high school sports, stuff like that. I'm not an athlete. I mean, so it was, yeah, I probably didn't affect anything. But I was playing baseball, playing football. I continued playing football because it was in the fall. But I was like, I'm quitting baseball because I want to focus on fishing. So from 10th grade on, it was like I need to focus on that because you can only do so many things well. You can do a lot of things okay, but you can only do so many things really great. So I wanted to narrow it down, and that's what we did. We focused on fishing.
Yep. So with you going to the Harris chains, what is the baits that Patrick is going to have tied on in practice?
I'm gonna have a frog on. That'd be nice. A spinner bait, shallow crankbait, probably the OG Slim because I defo smashed them on there. I'm gonna have a jerk bait tied on. I'm gonna have a Zoom fluke stick, black and blue, and June bug. Might have a mag trick worm tied on. I'm gonna have a speed worm tied on. I'm gonna have a Z crawl tied on. I'm gonna have some plastics tied on. I'm gonna have some Texas rigs. Probably about 10 Texas rigs. I probably have Carolina rig. Have a rattle trap tied on. And this is no joke. I will have all this stuff tied on. I'll have 40 rods rigged in the boat. I have a popper tied on. I have a prop bait tied on. Probably 5 jerk baits. Probably one deep diving crankbait just in case. Um, a bunch.
Yeah.
Probably a Bubba. Um, I can't remember what else. I have a lot of stuff.
Now, would you like to have a tournament to where Bass like puts in at like Holiday Park, and to be able to kind of fish like the Everglades and stuff like that?
That'd be pretty cool. I would like to fish the Everglades. I mean, you talk about some fish catching.
Oh
I would
yeah,
like to go to some smaller bodies of water sometimes too. Like I think the classic would be a good idea for it. Smaller bodies of water that are fisheries we don't typically get to go to. So I would love to go to the Everglades. I like catching bass. I enjoy setting the hook. That's why I wouldn't mind catching another 10 pounder, but it's like to be honest, if I go fun fishing, if I got dad in the boat with me, I'd rather go catch 35s.
yeah,
Instead of like 1 10 pounder all day, because that is fun if that's what you want to do. And I mean, don't get me wrong. Um, I have a ton of big swim baits. I'll go chase big fish, and an elephant eats a peanut. You don't even have to throw a big swim bait at a big bass to catch him. I mean, you
right,
could throw a finesse worm, and he will eat it.
Yeah,
It's just throwing in the right place at the right time and
yeah,
targeting them is
yeah,
the biggest difference. But if I'm going out there for fun fishing nowadays, it could be 33 pounders eating a buzz bait or something. Like I want to go out there and have fun, and that's what's
right,
fun to me. It's
yeah.
just being able to set the hook.
And how
yeah,
cool would it be if BASS decided to go down to the Everglades and hold an event down there and open it up to peacocks and largemouth as
Yeah,
a
I've
mixed
never caught a
bag?
peacock.
Oh
Oh
man,
man,
I swear
I,
it to you.
do you want me to tell you the best thing to do? Go down there and have you either like one of them little pop R's
hmm,
Yeah.
or a tiny whopper plopper,
Goo.
and just get ready to hear like people throwing cinder blocks into the water, because that's how hard they're hitting that thing.
That gets me fired up.
Yeah,
I don't care. Yeah, I don't care if it's a 1 pound peacock or a 4.5 to 5 pound peacock. They all sound the same. They sound like a cinder block hitting that topwater bait.
yeah, and it is
Meanwhile,
vicious. And I will tell you this, Patrick. Gators do like peacocks, just
yeah,
from experience.
peacock does, man.
Everyone likes. Can you eat peacock bass?
Yep,
Are they
Yeah,
good?
I've never had it, but we had Neil Starks out or he took us out there last year. We've gone down there the past 2 years to the Everglades, and Neil Starks took us out, and he says, "I'll show you how to catch some peacocks." We caught over 100 in one day, and
Cool.
and
Majority of
I
them
asked him. He
red
says,
tide.
"Yeah, people take them." Um, but he said like the cichlids is what they primarily will eat down there though.
Okay.
And so, but you said something about a spinner bait. We had the spinnerbait king on the podcast, and he told us how to. He says is a proper way or how you're supposed to throw a spinnerbait. And so I want to hear. And guys, if you don't know who we're talking about Mr. Jimmy Houston. So, um, but how do you typically will throw a spinnerbait?
It all depends on what I'm throwing at. Typically, you got to work it around structure. We all want to see the spinnerbait get ate. I love burning it and ripping it, and where you can see it, you're bringing it in, and he comes up and eat it.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like when it's right out of sight, right when you get that thing out of your vision, is the depth that spinnerbait needs to be running. Um, if it's 30 foot of water and you can see 10 foot, you probably need to get it to 11. So it's unless you're herring fishing, then you got to burn that thing on the surface.
Yeah,
But um, and sometimes you got to worm it. I mean, sometimes you got to slow down. You got to bring it over that structure and drop it back down into it. But typically, I'm bringing that thing in there, and I mean, you're changing it up. I want them blades clacking. You got to have something different. You got to throw some eradication in there.
yeah,
Um, and I like putting a trailer on there. A lot of people don't like trailers. Not a trailer hook, but a trailer bait. That way, when he bites it, he's got something he can he can
yeah,
suck onto. I've said this before, but I call it suction surface. Bass are inhale. They feed by inhaling stuff, um, but they're suction feeders, and so it's like just like a buzz bait or spinner bait. If it's nothing but skirt, you get a lot of misses because he's got nothing to inhale but that skirt. But if you put a swim bait or something on there, I
yeah. It's
mean,
solid,
when
right?
he goes something solid, he goes to inhale it, it shoots right in his throat, and you've got him. I mean, you're
Got it.
reeling that sucker in. So
Yeah,
mainly get it right out of sight just a little bit, and you got to put that thing in the cover. You got to throw that thing
Yeah,
as thick in that cover as you possibly can, whether it's grass, through lily pads, under a dock, around a dock. Getting that thing as close to cover as you can.
yeah,
well, and you for about 90% of it, I'll say that you said exactly what Jimmy said. But he said his number one secret for throwing a spinner bait is, especially when he's throwing around cover, he wants them blades on the top of the water, just on top of the
Ripping.
water. Yeah.
Yep.
And so, but yeah. But what would be if you could go fish for any kind of fish? What would be the fish that you would want to go after?
It's a hard one. I like them all. I want to go for fish that are biting.
Yeah,
Whatever's biting
that's a
and
good
schooling.
answer.
yeah,
Um, I like schooling fish. I don't care if it's schooling redfish. I don't care if it's schooling tarpon. I don't care if it's schooling smallmouth. I like schooling fish because they're feeding.
yeah.
They're aggressive. You throw something in there, you're gonna get bit
Yeah,
usually, and that's what I like. I like feeding fish, schoolers.
Well, I mean, if I have to go pick a fish, I'm going to pick a peacock.
That'd be a good one.
But just if I'm going out and I just want to go smash some fish, I especially like like late spring, early summer, when them hybrids are moving in. Yeah, I'd
I'd about to
love.
say for that time of year, shell crackers.
Oh
Catching
man,
shell crackers at home is the deal. When you
yeah.
go catch like 60 of them things, I mean,
I'll
you're just
fill the live
oh,
well up with them and get ready
happy
for a
time,
fish fry.
happy time.
yeah.
Yeah. So, what is your goal for, like, let's say the next 5 years? Where does Patrick want to be in the next 5 years?
That's a good question. I need to go back and look at my 5 year goals from 5 years ago because it's hard to believe this is my sixth season on the Bassmaster Elite Series, and it's time to reset some new goals. Um, I'd say at the 10-year mark, I don't know. I mean, I would like a classic win. I would really like to get there. Hope it might be my 10th one. That's fine. I don't care if it is my
It doesn't
20th
matter, does
one.
it?
It doesn't matter as long as you get that one. I'd like the AOI. AOI is a big one, on the checklist. And really just having a great season each year. Being
Yeah,
consistent, being in the hunt to win AOI every single year. Even if you don't win AOI, just that's what your sponsors want. They want consistency. They want you on stage presence. If you're doing that good, you got live cameras on you, and really just kind of you got to do what you can to stay relevant and
yeah,
catching fish.
yeah. So, how have you been? Because Norman and we've talked about this multiple times, that you were probably one of the most consistent fishermen in bass or in the world right now that we think of. I mean, because every time you turn around, Patrick is right there in the hunt. So how is it that you can go? And I know that you have lakes that you've had some bad turnouts on and stuff like that. But how is it that you're able to stay so consistent on, especially in the AOI rankings?
Um, just I have a short memory, really. I mean, it's very short term. You can ask Tanner, my camera guy for this year. He's been very surprised because I'll have a terrible day one. Like, I mean, I had a terrible day one at Lake Fork. I had 18 pounds. 18 pounds anywhere in the country is like, dang, dude, you got 18? 18 pounds at Lake Fork's like catching 7 pounds. I mean, it's like, it's just like not
Yeah,
catching them. And you get upset. I mean, you kick yourself in the butt. You're like, man, you just didn't do your job. But then it's like you kick that horse for a minute, you go to bed, you wake up, and you're like, who
it's a new
cares?
day.
It's a completely new day. You're not even thinking about that. So it's having that short term memory of one day at a time. That's all I do.
Yeah,
I'm not looking 2 weeks out. I'm looking at one day at a time. I'm
Yeah,
not looking at St. John's yet. I'm only going to start focusing on Harris Chain. We get to Harris Chain, we're going to put all our energy into that one tournament. We get done with Harris Chain, it's time to roll into St. John's. And each day is different. It's like I don't kick myself for what could have, should have
yeah,
happened, because if at Fork I stay down in the dirt about it, I don't go back and catch them day two. And
right,
so
right.
it's like you just have to rally every day. You're not gonna. It's bass fishing. I can
yeah,
promise you. You can have the most knowledge in the world. You can have the best graphs in the world. You can have the sneakiest baits in the world. You can have the stuff that nobody's got. You can't catch them every day. I don't care
Mhm.
what it is. It's bass fishing. That's why we all love it,
Yeah,
because it's impossible to run house on this sport. It
yeah,
is. I mean, there's
yeah,
just too many variables that change. There's a million variables that go into fishing, and
yeah.
that's why we love it. And so it's just staying humble and just fishing every day
Yeah. Now,
yeah.
being
that you can.
consistent in your mind, uh, is that consistency? Is that making the third day cut on a consistent basis, making the top 25? What is being consistent in your mind?
You definitely want to make the third day cut. You got to be fishing on Saturdays.
Um,
You got to go to a tournament and you got to be fishing for 6 days.
yeah, I'm
That's
glad.
3 days
I'm
of
glad.
practice, and then everything above that's good. We always shoot for a top 10. We want four
Yeah.
days of fishing. You want to make it to Sunday. That's when you're really doing good. But no matter what, um, and I hold myself to a high standard sometimes because I'll make a cut and I still get upset.
Yeah,
Like I was upset at Fork because I caught 18 pounds the first day. I mean, you catch a 33 and then a 34 the next day, and you're just like, it's what could it have been, but you can't get
Yeah.
upset about that.
yeah. Now I'm
No.
kind of glad you said that because right now you have 80 tournaments under your belt in the Elite Series, and you have made the third day cut in impressive. And there's not a lot of anglers that actually has this percentage going for them, but you've made the third day cut 75% of your tournaments after 80 tournaments fished. So
Dang,
that's a pretty impressive, because it's hard enough to make the third day cut once or twice a season, for the competition that you guys fish against, and to
100%.
make it 80 tournaments in, I think you're sitting at like 50. I think it's 55 third day cuts you've made in 80 tournaments. So
All I know,
that's
Norman,
consistent right there.
yeah. All I know, Norman, is this year Patrick has helped me out in my fantasy fishing. That's all.
I rallied for some of them. Like I had, hey, both elites. I had a tough. Well, all three tournaments this year, I had a tough day one.
Yeah.
I had 19 pounds at Toledo, had 18 at fork, and then I had 10 pounds in the classic. I have been giving away day one. I did this actually 2 years ago too. I did the
Yeah.
same
Yeah.
thing. And like
Well,
last year, I did okay. I was just kind of consistent all the way
yeah.
through. And there's just some years I just struggle on day one. I don't know why. I
Well,
think I get in a hurry. Usually,
yeah.
I have had like a really good practice. And how I fish day one of tournaments, I put my feelers out. And what I mean
Yeah.
by that is I go to all my areas, like basically like a dog peeing on a fire hydrant. Because somebody's like, I didn't see you in here. It's like,
Yeah.
bull crap. I came in here. Like, I'll show
Yeah.
you the trail. Like, I was in this creek.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I
Well,
do that on day one. I'm stating my ground. And so
Right.
I do a lot of running around. And typically they're on one end of the lake or the other. They're not typically two pockets side by
yeah.
side. So I do a lot of that day one and day
Yeah.
two. I'm like, no, 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 no. We got to slow
Yeah.
down. Let's go back to this one creek that we really knew we should have been fishing, and then fish here day two, and then
Yeah.
it works out. So
Well,
Yeah.
right
it's a
now,
me
after
thing.
two tournaments in, this year, you're sitting in second place in AOY. Well, second or third place, depending on how you want to look at it. There's actually a two-way tie at the lead by two rookies
It's tight.
for AOY as of now, and you're sitting right in second place. I think 3 or 4 points back, but you're in second place right now. So
Yeah.
great start to the year, and I'm just looking forward to just seeing how this thing unfolds because it's a tight point race at the beginning with
Hundred
two
percent.
guys that's
It
actually
Yeah.
will be, I
leading.
think, all the way through.
I
Oh
think
That's
so
yeah.
too.
with sonar nowadays.
I think so too.
Um, the cut weights are higher. The AOY points are tighter. I mean, it's a it's a it's a shootout.
Yeah. And do you
Yeah.
think the tournaments? Well, there's only two tournaments in so far, but the tournaments remaining on the schedule, does it set up well for you going into each event before you
I
get
think
there?
so.
That you think you could
It's
keep the
usually the
string
ones
going?
you don't think you're going to catch them at are the ones you catch them at. So
Like it.
Yeah.
um, I feel good about all of them. It's just making it work.
Just
Now, with that being said, I want to go on and put this out on the record with Norman saying that talking about the you're in second place in AOY. Norman, after Florida, he's going to be sitting in number one because he's taken at least one of them.
I'll take it.
uh,
I hope so.
there
Yep.
you
Gosh,
go. There you
So,
get me
go.
fired
so
up.
there is my prediction, guys. I know when I done the lives to say, hey, we're coming on, and I told you that I was going to make a prediction for Patrick, and I just know that how Patrick is fishing, and I know that he tends to like them Florida lakes, but I
He's
do
on
know that
he's on
them.
record by saying he loves to go down to Florida.
Yep.
I do like Florida.
So
I like big
uh,
bass.
yeah, but I mean that's a lot better than Iconelli says. He just hates Florida. We asked him what lake has his number, and he says Florida,
He said
The
anywhere
state.
we
the
he said
state.
anywhere we go in Florida, he said.
Yeah, he said
Oh.
anywhere in Florida. If it starts with Florida, I don't like it. It has my number.
Well, I better get to rigging then.
But you
Yeah,
can't
yeah,
you can't you can't beat them big bucket heads down there in
You
Florida,
cannot.
especially when you
Oh,
go
long
South
boys.
Florida.
Oh, like 26 inches. I feel like.
yeah.
Man.
So, I got another question, and then we got a couple questions from the comments and stuff. But do you see yourself, or do you even want to fish as long as like Rick Clunn has? Is that something that you're
I don't know if
wanting?
I can go as long as Rick. I would like to go. I'd like to have a long, consistent, good career, but 50 years. I mean,
That is amazing, isn't it?
that's beyond amazing. It really
Yeah.
is. Um, I don't know. If I went that long, it would be, gosh, I don't know. I would like to fish a long time. I mean, if I made half of what Rick does at 25, I would be elated.
Yeah.
Stoked. Yeah. So, another question is what line do you prefer in clear water? Fluorocarbon, mono, or do you still use braid? Which one do you prefer?
On bait casters, um, it all depends on the bait I'm throwing. Clear water, I still like fluorocarbon on dragon baits, like baits I'm going to make contact with. If I'm throwing top water, I use braid. And on a spinning rod, a spinning outfit, I'll use a braid to a fluoro leader. So mostly all fluorocarbon or braid.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, but if I'm setting the hook or if it's a bait that he's gonna look at and he's gonna eat, I'll use fluorocarbon for
How
that.
about in Florida when you're down there trying to catch some big bucket heads?
25-pound fluoro in 65-pound braid.
There you go. There you go.
so,
Big. Except I
uh,
might use mono for my prop bait.
hmm, that is, I'm just ready to see you get out there. Every time that you have a camera guy on your boat, that just makes me happy. Because
You
I
need to
know that
start my GoPro live. That would be the deal too. So in case you didn't have a camera, I think that's a lot of people are going to start doing that.
what the GoPro Live.
Yep, running where like each pro could have their GoPro in their boat running.
Yeah.
That way your fans could watch on your Facebook or something.
Yeah.
Yep. So, my dad says, "Congratulations, Patrick, on making the classic. Were you surprised at the size of the fish on Grand Lake?"
Um, I was. There's a lot of 3 to 4.5 pound fish in that lake. A lot. They've had some spawns kind of mishap. I feel like there, where there's a lot of 12 to 14 inch fish there, and there wasn't a lot of 2 to 3s. They were like 3.5 to 4.5s. So they had like 1 year gap kind of missing in there, and then a lot of the big ones were kind of real isolated. Um, I think it's a phenomenal lake. I was really hoping that lake was going to get in the bushes. I would like to go back there. It's set up really well. Um, I it's I think that lake's kind of like a hidden gem. I mean, hidden gem for out of towners. There's a lot of locals that fish there, but
Yeah,
I'm surprised we hadn't taken more tournaments there. To be
Yeah.
honest,
yeah,
Yeah.
Grove's a nice
and
place.
it really was, and I was surprised. Well, I won't say surprised, but because I mean Knoxville, for the three classics that I've been to, Knoxville was by far my favorite one. Just one, it was
Venue's amazing.
everything was 10, 15 minutes away from each other.
100%.
And,
The Knoxville
and
Classic has the best venue, hands down. Fishery, different,
mm,
but
eh, unless you're Gussie and can get on them smallies and
100%.
Now,
but
a couple of the Oklahoma anglers that qualified for the classic said that they just missed it by either 1 week early or 1 week late. If it was 1 week
I
earlier
could see
or
that.
1 week later, it might have been a
Because I
different
think my
outcome
fish
as
were
far as
leaving.
the
To be
bass
honest, I
caught.
was fishing that main lake stuff, and in practice it was like good. And I think in
Yeah.
yeah,
3 days, them fish had already pushed into them creeks a lot
Yeah.
more. They were transitioning
Yeah.
quick, so I think they were
yeah,
already heading to the hill very
Yeah.
fast.
yeah. We who was it we was talking to? Um, I think it was John Cox that was talking to on day two, and he was surprised about like how many locals were out there
It was
on the
unbelievable.
water. And he said it kind of reminded him back of the time like when they used to have all the floatzillas and stuff.
Absolutely. I mean, it was the second day. I pulled into a pocket, starting spot, and I looked behind, and there's like 4 boats following me, and I was like, "You guys know what I caught yesterday, right?" Like I had 10 pounds, and they're like, "We know, we're here for you." I was like, "Okay." Like everybody had 4 boats,
Yeah.
everybody,
Yeah,
and then
Now,
like Christy and Milken had 50 to 100. No, it was like the old days of like how many
yeah.
people had boats on them. It was crazy.
When
yeah.
you see that, and when you see a flotilla coming behind you from spot to spot, does that pump you up more
It kind
so
of gets you going because you're like, I'm
to
about to catch them.
get you going, get
It
that
gets you
adrenaline
going.
going?
I mean, because they're following you. They're there to watch you.
Yeah.
Except every now and then one peels off and starts fishing behind you, and you're like, I thought you were following me. It's like that happens sometimes, but it's a public lake. You're
Yeah.
just kind of like, dang, dude, you've been following me for 3 pockets, and then you fish this one. But that's fishing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We speaking of floatzillas, um, we were talking to Ike about it when he was on, and he said that uh, he had a floatzilla that was behind him, and he said I was not catching anything that day, but we had about an hour and a half left of the tournament. He said I knew Kevin Van Dam was just right around the point from him,
Oh
and
God.
so he told the floatzilla like 3 or 4 times to start hollering and screaming just so Kevin thought that he was catching fish.
I'm surprised they didn't crank up and drive past him, and then turn around and drive back by because you got to think about how much boat weight that is. I've
Yeah.
seen it blows creeks out. Like
Oh
it's
yeah.
if you go into an area, they're coming.
Yeah. And how do you like if you have that, are they courteous enough? Like let's say they're following uh Ike and Nelly, and then or they're watching him, and you have to go past him. Are they courteous enough to kind of at least get out of your way while they're
Yeah.
still
Oh, they're definitely courteous enough. Yeah, they're pretty cordial. I mean, you go there and just kind of talk to them, and they'll just kind of all slide out of the way. And if you're fishing a creek, they all kind of tend to stick to the middle and stuff like that.
right,
It's definitely different though. It's one element you're not used to contending around.
right? And that's one thing that I miss. And the bass, I think the Bass Live is really what kind of killed that.
I think so too. And now it's like
Um,
you get home, sit at home, and you watch it even better. You're looking
right,
at his graph now.
right,
You can't do
and
that. Watch it. But the good old days. I remember first time we ever did it. It was at Murray way back. We watched Kevin Van Dam and Casey go out there and catch them, and it was just it was cool. You know,
yeah,
I mean, you're chasing them. You're in the moment.
yeah. And I can remember like seeing uh some of the anglers like use the floatzilla to block the pockets if they want a pocket. They were using the floatzilla to block the pocket from the other anglers to trying to get
Really,
into. Oh yeah,
I can see that.
yeah. And
Yeah,
so
go ahead and choke that pocket out.
that's and that's because I went on. I was on Chick when y'all came up, and when Ike and Nelly and KVD got into it
Yep.
at Sequoia, and I didn't understand. Oh, shut up! My phone picked up like it's like I was trying to ask it a question. Um, but there were some of them pockets that the anglers were saying, "Hey, kind of close this off for me because I want the back end of this pocket and stuff." So I was like, it
You can
kind of
use them to your
works.
advantage. Yeah.
Yeah. So um, we've had you on here for almost an hour and 15 minutes, brother, and I know you spent the last 5 weeks on the road. And you finally got home, and now you got baby duty.
I got some spit up on my shirt. I think it's a little dirty. That's why I gotta go take care of him. We gotta go for a walk and gotta go cook some dinner.
Oh man,
There you
speaking
go.
of dinner, you're speaking my language now. So, but Patrick, we're going to try to catch up with you somewhere. I think that
After
y'all are
Florida,
coming.
hopefully. Hopefully
The
that'll be
what?
a good sign. After Florida.
Yeah,
Oh,
right.
we're gonna have you on. We've got a week already open and ready uh for you to come to slide back in here. But no, we're actually going to try to get to a couple more of y'all's tournaments and be able
Good.
to do some filming and stuff. So we really enjoyed it, and we enjoy hanging out because professional fishing is, if people don't know, like they can access the anglers a whole lot more
100%.
than any other sport that is out there. And that's one thing. And y'all never I've never seen y'all turn anybody away, especially if it's a kid that comes up and wants to kind of chit chat. I mean, y'all are probably by far the best athletes to be able to say, "Hey, I'm going to spend 5 minutes with whoever it is." So Norman and I are wanting to be able to come and at least meet up with y'all again here in the next, or excuse me, and with some of the couple tournaments here coming up. So,
Okay, good. I'm looking forward to it.
but but again, I'm ready to see you hold a trophy that says a Florida lake.
Me
Yep.
too. I like Florida.
We already got it locked in.
Yep, yep. And do you think, before this is going to be my last question, and then Norman's going to ask you our last question, which you just answered it about 4 days ago. But but with this year's, with having two elite tournaments already that has been pushing 100 pounds and 100 plus pounds, um, how many other century belts do you think's Lake's going to push out century belts?
None
You don't think
this year.
so?
Mm-mm.
That's it. Just the which everybody knew Fork was going to, but
Fork with pre-spawn, no doubt. We got Harris chain. I don't know if it's fishing good enough for 100. It could be. We actually could get blown away. I was talking to John Cox the other day, and he said he's seen a lot of 30-pound bags that time of year. So it could. It'd be Harris would probably be our best bet. Other
Yeah,
than that, I
yeah,
don't see it at St. John's. Murray's going to be a lot of weight. It's going to be 90 pounds. It's not going to
yeah.
be 100. I don't
Weather's
think.
going to have a lot to do with the Harris chain
100%.
for if there's any sight fishing going on. If there's sight
100%.
fishing and the weather is prime for a good bed and swing,
Yep.
it could see 25 30 pounds easy a day. But that's
100%.
all weather.
Yeah. Wheeler and Smith, no shot. Champlain, it's not 25 a day. There's impressive.
that's
And
yeah.
St. Lawrence, I'm going to say no because we're going out of Waddington this year. If we were going out of
Mm.
Clayton, I'd say yes. We got a 92-mile boat ride to get to that lake, so I don't see it
Whew.
happening there.
I'll just let you know we won't be at that one.
That's gonna be all right. You're right, because we'll come back, we'll all be soaking wet and miserable after that ride.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Norman,
Uh,
take away our last question, brother.
all right, Patrick, and this is kind of a Patrick kind of knows what's coming here. He's answered this question probably about what 3 or 4 times so far. But
Yeah.
anyway, Patrick, if you were able to have one person on your boat, now this person could be passed away or still with us, who would that person be and why? Would you want to fish with them for the day?
I'm gonna throw a curveball at y'all. I'm gonna say Shepard Walters, my newborn son, 6 weeks old now, 7 weeks actually yesterday. Not yet, but I can't wait to have him on the boat just to be able to
That's
kind of
awesome,
teach
man.
him some stuff. Pass
And
on what my dad passed on to me to pass
yeah,
on to him
and
one day.
and I'm sure I
Um,
already have, whether it be Facebook comments or yada yada yada. But just in case I dropped the ball, congratulations to
Yeah.
you and your
thank
wife
y'all.
for
Thank you.
the birth of your son.
So
Yeah.
hopefully I'm ready. I'm excited to have him. I told him he's not going to be he hadn't heard me yet. He's not speaking, but I told him he's not going to be a professional fisherman. I said he's going to be really good at golf or baseball.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
It's
thank you
like
guys for having me.
anytime, and we're gonna pencil you in on another date because
Right after the Florida swing.
after the Florida, and
Hundred
so
All
percent.
right, awesome, Patrick. Thank you, brother. Really appreciate you, dude. And
yeah.
it's always fun. Always fun being
And
Absolutely.
able to talk with you.
if you could hang on just for a second after we get done, Patrick, if you don't mind.
Yep.
But guys, I just want to say thank y'all so much for watching this. We had I think it was like the most I seen was 18 viewers shy of 2 grand on during this hour and 17 minutes. So that has been the biggest episode of viewer wise that we have had during this time.
Watching live.
And we want to say thank you so much. And we could not do this without you. And we will see you next week. We've got some entertaining guests coming on next week as well. But we'll see you next week. Hope you live the passion
Live the
and
passion
see you
every
out
day.
on the water, guys.
See ya.
Yeah. Take care.